Have you ever felt like you're stuck on a hamster wheel? You get up, you go to work, you earn a paycheck, you pay your bills, and at the end of the month, you're right back where you started, waiting for the next paycheck to do it all over again. What if I told you that this cycle, this rat race, isn't an accident? What if it's the result of following financial advice that's fundamentally flawed? What if the well-meaning guidance you've heard your whole life, go to school, get good grades, and find a safe, secure job, is actually a trap that keeps you financially dependent? Today, we're diving deep into a book that has shattered the financial mindsets of millions. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. This isn't just a book about finance. It's a powerful story about two fathers with two radically different philosophies about money, and how those beliefs shaped Kiyosaki's journey to wealth. One dad was a government employee who died leaving bills to be paid. The other became one of the richest men in Hawaii, leaving behind an empire. By the end of this video, you will understand the single most important rule the rich follow that the poor and middle class do not. You'll learn the difference between an asset and a liability, why your house is probably not an asset, and how the rich legally pay fewer taxes. This might just be the most important minutes you ever spend on your financial future. Lesson 1. The Tale of Two Dads. The story begins with Robert Kiyosaki, a young boy growing up in Hawaii with two influential father figures. His biological father, whom he calls his poor dad, was a brilliant man. He was highly educated, held a PhD, and eventually became the head of education for the state of Hawaii. He believed firmly in the traditional path to success: excel in school, get a secure job with good benefits, and climb the corporate or government ladder. His other father, his rich dad, was his best friend's dad. This man never finished the 8th grade but possessed a powerful financial education learned on the streets. He built a business empire from the ground up, owning warehouses, a construction company, and a chain of stores. The advice these two men gave was a study in contrasts. Poor dad would say things like, "The love of money is the root of all evil, study hard so you can find a good company to work for," and, when faced with something he couldn't buy, he'd sigh, "I can't afford it." Rich dad's perspective was the polar opposite. He believed, the lack of money is the root of all evil. He would advise, study hard so you can find a good company to buy. And he absolutely forbade the words, "I can't afford it." Instead, he insisted on asking a question that opens the mind: how can I afford it? One phrase is a statement that shuts down your brain. The other is a question that forces it to think, to search for solutions, and to grow stronger. Poor dad was trapped by the idea of job security, always concerned with pay raises and retirement plans. He worked for money. Rich dad, even when he was broke after a financial setback, continued to refer to himself as rich, understanding that being broke is temporary, but being poor is eternal. He focused on making money work for him. Growing up with these conflicting viewpoints forced Kiyosaki to think, compare, and ultimately choose a path for himself. At the young age of 9, he made a pivotal decision. He would listen to and learn from his rich dad about money, even though it was his poor dad who had all the college degrees. That decision changed his life. Lesson 2. The rich don't work for money. This is the lesson that truly set Kiyosaki on his path. When he and his friend Mike asked Rich Dad how to get rich, his response was unconventional. He put them to work in one of his convenience stores for a paltry 10 cents an hour. The work was tedious and boring, dusting canned goods for 3 hours every Saturday. After 3 weeks of this, Kiyosaki was angry and ready to quit. He felt underpaid and exploited. He hadn't learned a single thing about getting rich. This was exactly the reaction Rich Dad was waiting for. He sat them down and explained his lesson. Life is the best teacher, he said. Most of the time, life does not talk to you. It just sort of pushes you around. Each push is life saying, "Wake up. There's something I want you to learn." He explained that most people let life push them around. They get angry at their boss or their low pay, but they never realize it's life itself that's pushing them. They're trapped by two emotions, fear and greed. The fear of not having money makes them work hard. Then, once they get their paycheck, greed or desire makes them think about all the things they can buy. This sets up the pattern of getting up, going to work, and paying bills, a cycle he called the rat race. The real lesson wasn't about the 10 cents. It was about seeing the trap. He then made them a new offer: continue working, but for zero pay. Why? To force their minds to stop focusing on a paycheck and start looking for opportunities to create money that weren't tied to their labor. While working for free, they noticed the store manager tearing off the front half of comic book covers to return to the distributor for credit. The rest of the book was just thrown away. They saw an opportunity. They asked the distributor if they could have the old comics, and he agreed, as long as they didn't resell them. So, what did these 9-year-old boys do? They opened a comic book library in Mike's basement. They hired Mike's younger sister as the head librarian, paying her $1 a week. They charged other neighborhood kids 10 cents for admission, which allowed them to read as many comics as they wanted in 2 hours. Their business was averaging $9.50 a week, a fortune compared to their previous 30-cent Saturdays. Their business generated money for them even when they weren't physically there. They had learned the first, most crucial lesson: they stopped working for money and started making money work for them. Lesson 3. Know an asset from a liability. Alright, if you take only one thing away from this entire video, let it be this. This single concept is the foundation of all wealth building. Rich Dad's rule number 1 is profoundly simple. You must know the difference between an asset and a liability, and buy assets. That's it. That's the only rule. But what is an asset? Forget the complicated definitions you'd find in an accounting textbook. Rich Dad's definitions are based on cash flow. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. It's not about words, it's about the numbers. The story is told by the direction the cash is flowing. The rich spend their lives acquiring assets. The poor and middle class spend their lives acquiring liabilities that they think are assets. And what is the biggest, most common liability that people mistakenly believe is an asset? Their house. This idea is controversial, but let's analyze it with Rich Dad's logic. Does your house put money in your pocket every month? For most people, the answer is a resounding no. It takes money out of your pocket through mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, repairs, and utilities. It's a cash-draining liability. Let's look at the cash flow patterns. For a poor person, their income from a job goes directly into the expense column to cover taxes, rent, and food. There's nothing left over. For the middle class, the pattern is more dangerous. They get a higher-paying job, but they use that income to buy liabilities. A bigger house, a nicer car, credit card debt. Their income flows through their expense column to pay for these liabilities. This is the very definition of the rat race. No matter how much their income increases, their expenses and liabilities rise with it, keeping them trapped. The rich, however, have a different pattern. They focus on building their asset column. They use their income to buy assets, things like income-generating real estate, dividend-paying stocks, bonds, or businesses they own. These assets then generate more income, which they use to acquire even more assets. It's a powerful, self-perpetuating cycle of wealth creation. Their assets pay for their expenses. The only way to escape the rat race is to shift your focus from simply earning more money to acquiring income-generating assets. Lesson 4. Mind your own business. When Ray Kroc, the visionary founder of McDonald's, was asked to speak to an MBA class, he asked the students, "What business am I in?" One student finally shouted, "The hamburger business." Kroc chuckled and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not in the hamburger business. My business is real estate." He knew that while the franchises sold burgers, his true business was acquiring the incredibly valuable real estate located at the best intersections and corners in America and around the globe. This leads us to Rich Dad's third powerful lesson: mind your own business. There is a critical difference between your profession and your business. Your profession is what you do to earn a paycheck. You might be a doctor, a programmer, or a teacher. Your business, however, is your asset column. The mistake most people make is that they spend their lives minding someone else's business, their employers, and making them rich. The rich focus on their asset columns, while everyone else focuses on their income statements. Kiyosaki's advice is clear: keep your daytime job, but start building your business. Start buying real assets, not liabilities or personal effects that lose value the moment you buy them. A new car loses 25% of its value the second you drive it off the lot. It is not an asset. Diligently build a base of solid assets like businesses that don't require your physical presence, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, income-generating real estate, notes, IOUs, and royalties from intellectual property. Once your asset column is generating enough cash flow to cover your expenses, then, and only then, should you buy luxuries. The rich buy luxuries last, funded by the income from their assets. Kiyosaki tells the story of how his wife, Kim, wanted a Mercedes. Instead of taking out a loan, they waited for 4 years until their real estate portfolio grew enough to generate the extra cash flow needed to pay for the car. The apartment house bought the car, not their own sweat and labor. That is the mindset of the rich. Lesson 5. Master the power of corporations. Ever wonder why the rich seem to get richer and pay proportionally less in taxes? The answer lies in their understanding of history and the power of the corporation. Rich Dad explained that the idea of a permanent income tax was sold to the public with a Robin Hood fantasy: take from the rich and give to the poor. The masses voted for it. But the government's appetite for money grew so large that taxes soon needed to be levied on the middle class and the poor, the very people who voted for the law. The rich, however, didn't just comply. They reacted. They used their financial knowledge to outsmart the system. Their biggest secret? The corporation. A corporation isn't a building, it's a legal entity that allows for a massive strategic advantage when it comes to taxes. The cash flow difference is staggering. For a typical employee, the financial flow is earn, pay taxes, spend. The government takes its share before you even see your money. For a corporation owner, the flow is earn, spend, pay taxes. A corporation can pay for many expenses, such as car payments, insurance, travel, and meals, with pre-tax dollars. What is left over at the end is then taxed. It is one of the biggest legal tax loopholes the rich use to build wealth. This isn't about illegal tax evasion, it's about financial intelligence. understanding and using the tax code as it was written. The government provides tax incentives for business owners and investors because they are the ones who create jobs and stimulate the economy. Lesson 6. Work to learn, not to earn. Kiyosaki tells a powerful story about meeting a young journalist in Singapore. She was a brilliant writer and dreamed of becoming a best-selling author. Kiyosaki's advice was simple: take a course on sales. She was deeply offended. "I have a master's degree in English literature," she fumed. "I went to school so I wouldn't have to be a salesperson. I hate salespeople." Kiyosaki gently pointed to a note she had written. "Robert Kiyosaki, best-selling author." He said, "It says best-selling author, not best-writing author." He admitted he was a terrible writer but had gone to sales school. The combination of her writing talent and his sales knowledge would create a true bestseller. The world is filled with smart, talented, and educated poor people. Often, they are just one skill away from great wealth. That missing skill is frequently sales and marketing, the ability to communicate, to negotiate, and to sell an idea, a product, or yourself. This is why Rich Dad's final lesson is to work to learn, not to work for money. Instead of seeking specialization in a single field, which can trap you, he advised knowing a little about a lot. He encouraged Kiyosaki to work in different areas of his companies: accounting, construction, sales, marketing, to understand the entire business system. For young people today, the advice is to seek a job for what you will learn more than what you will earn. Master the key management skills of cash flow, systems, and people. These skills, especially communication and sales, are far more valuable in the long run than a slightly higher starting salary. Summary: awakening your financial genius. So, how do you go from understanding these concepts to actually applying them? It begins with awakening the financial genius that Kiyosaki believes lies dormant in all of us. It's about changing your mindset and then taking decisive action. Find a reason greater than reality. You need a powerful why, a combination of deep emotional wants and don't wants. Do you want to be free to travel the world? Do you not want to work your entire life for someone else? Your reason is the fuel that will get you over the hurdles. Without a strong reason, any path is hard. Make daily choices for education. Your mind is your single most powerful asset. With every dollar you receive, you choose your future. Choose to invest in your financial education. Read books, attend seminars, and practice. Most people simply buy investments rather than first investing in learning about investing. Pay yourself first. This is the most crucial habit to master. Before you pay your rent, your credit card, or even the government, allocate money to your asset column. This takes immense self-discipline. When you're short on cash, don't dip into your savings. Let the pressure from your creditors build. That pressure becomes a powerful motivation that forces you to think, to find new ways of creating income, and ultimately, to become financially stronger and smarter. Overcome your fear of losing. The primary difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they manage fear. Everyone is afraid of losing money. But the rich know that failure is part of the process of success. Rich Dad would say, failure inspires winners. And failure defeats losers. Think of the Texas motto, remember the Alamo. They turned a massive defeat into a rallying cry for victory. Winners are not afraid of losing. They hate losing, so they learn from it and become better. Rich Dad Poor Dad is not a step-by-step manual for getting rich. It's a fundamental shift in perspective. It's a call to unlearn the dogma of the poor and middle class and to adopt the mindset of the wealthy. It teaches you that financial freedom is not about how much money you make, but how much money you keep, and how hard that money works for you. Don't just work hard. Play it smart. Thank you for watching. If this video sparked a new idea or challenged a long-held belief, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the books that can change your life. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What is the one thing you are going to do differently after learning these lessons? Thank you and see you next time.